Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on, of course, where you are sitting across our great United States here. Thank you for attending. My name is Jason Repko, and welcome to Concourse Hosting's webinar on building a Tableau Center of Enablement. My role here with Concourse Hosting is essentially project manager in our data services. And what that boils down to, in layman's terms, is everything regarding Tableau. This is kind of my purview. And so glad that in partnership with Glenn Kendall, our owner, can join in and jump in and present something here during our webinar series. I'm also going to introduce Holly Kendall here with Concourse Hosting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly. I'm the marketing associate here at Concourse, and I've actually been kind of the monkey in the background for all of the webinars. And so for today, I'm just going to give you a little housekeeping overview for those of you who may not have used GoToWebinar before. So you'll see a control panel kind of on the right-hand side of your screen. At the bottom of this control panel, there's a box for you to ask questions in. You can send those questions to us at any time. We'll be saving them for the end of the presentation, and there we'll answer all of your questions. And if you find that control panel a little bit intrusive, eating up a little bit too much of your screen space, there is a reddish, orangish arrow that you can press that will cause the screen to collapse.
Cool. Thank you. So the agenda for this morning is this afternoon is going to be, we're going to take about 30 minutes of your time here, and what I'm going to do is lay out what a Center of Enablement is in terms of a definition. I'm going to present a case for it, and I think wrapped up in that, in presenting a case for it and why we're doing it, why we've put together one or starting to put together a Center of Enablement. I'm kind of wrapping in some ways that you could make a case to make a Center of Enablement in your organization around some other initiative, piece of software, technology, etc. So that'll kind of be baked in. And then the last third of our time, we'll actually take a look at the resources that we've put together so far in our Center of Enablement. And as Holly mentioned, you can answer a question, ask a question at any time. If it's right on point and hot on the topic, I'll probably answer it midstream, if you will. If it's something that's a little less relevant, maybe I'll just hold off to the end. But please feel free to ask questions. And again, we'll take a couple of questions here right at the end. So I'm going to start off by talking about my Christmas dinner. My wife and I cook. We like to cook a lot, and so it's really easy when it's just her and I, right? I leave work, I go, I buy my groceries. Usually there's a couple of ingredients to buy, pick up the bottle of wine, and head home, and I start cooking. But over Christmas, we had a, as probably many of you had, we had a big multi-member family dinner. And she and I, my wife and I, were kind of on point to be the ones to quarterback, if you will, and be the main people putting the whole dinner together. So what happens, of course, we've got all our ingredients and all our dishes, but it's a potluck too, right? So we've got different family members bringing different things, and some of them wind up requiring an ingredient maybe that they didn't have. So they're assuming that maybe we had that ingredient, in the kitchen where we were cooking. Some of them needed to reheat certain things. Others showed up at different times, and in various things needed, different preparation times and lengths in the oven or microwave or what have you. And the point is that as soon as it gets beyond, as soon as we're scaling this dinner out beyond just my wife and I and incorporating other people and other families coming at different times and bringing other recipes, dishes that require these different preparations, that's when kind of chaos happens, right? You probably, I'm sure many of you, if you didn't that didn't happen to you this Christmas. It's happened to you at some point in some dinner preparation. At some point, you just said, "This is crazy," right? And so, why do I use that story? I'll get to that in just a moment. So let's go to a definition. The Tableau Center of Enablement. The Center of Enablement is essentially a group of resources that are going to help you coordinate and deploy Tableau technologies or Tableau server. So if I would have had a Center of Enablement for my dinner, I might have had several resources like maybe an extra microwave, an extra hot plate, to coordinate all of these processes, the dishes that are going in, right, so we can scale out this dinner to something bigger. And what happens when, well, what we're really doing, when I mention this, is what we're really doing when you have a Tableau, when we have our clients who have a Tableau server site, which we host for them, is we've built an enterprise service for you. So each one of our clients, if you're on this webinar and you're a current client using Tableau server with us, or you're thinking about using Tableau server or Tableau desktop or the whole enchilada, what we're really doing is presenting and building an enterprise service for each single one of our clients. So each client that has a Tableau server site, that's their own little enterprise service. The next person, their own little enterprise service. So it's important for us to think about resources to allow for and enable smooth adoption of Tableau server. We want you to be able to use that and create your own culture of Tableau, of visual analytics within your organization. And we want to make sure as we grow and as our service grows and your use of Tableau grows within your own organization, that we're doing this in a way that enables us to really reach our goal efficiently. And a Center of Enablement really requires a community of people. What happens, going back to my story that I opened up with, what happens without a Center of Enablement? How does growth break down, right? Well, you might have problems with scaling when you're attempting to share a Tableau workbook throughout the organization, like sharing permissions or arranging projects within Tableau server, the availability of data sources, etc. You might encounter a sense of really not knowing what's going to happen when you change something. If I change this workbook, is there any kind of history of revisions or whatnot? So there can tend to be, chaos around that. Adding users, once you start going beyond your first couple of users in Tableau server and you have more people logging in, accessing different projects, adding users at first is just adding one person, maybe adding a second person, but as more requests come in, there's more wait time, whether that's for your IT or that's for us. So there's lots of wait time as well. Does time to value keep growing? So is there a slow time to adoption? Are users doing too much, or are they frustrated? Those things can happen too, and a lot of times that might be poorly trained or not fully oriented users. In terms of governance, is there a standard around data sources? Are there best practices around data sources? Or is everybody doing things in kind of a slapdash different way? And are there multiple versions of the truth, right? I've got a workbook going, you've got a workbook going, department A, B, and C has got some other version. You want to publish it finally and actually share it throughout the organization, but whose copy is the one that you're going to use? So there can be many versions of the truth as well. And that's a lot of things that we've noticed happen in the year or so that we've been working with Tableau server. So when I went to the Tableau conference this year in October, one of the main things weighing on my shoulders was this topic right here, the Center of Enablement. How can we create a resource, a place where anybody can go at your convenience and get the resources that you need to grow with the service? to learn about it, to know how to scale it out, in a manner that makes sense and is manageable. One thing I wanted to mention here that right off the bat, a couple of 3 or 4 of these slides actually come from Michael Cox, who's the principal architect with Tableau, and I borrowed those and used a few of those on with his permission. And this is one of them. Pay no attention to the boxes on the upper left with the text in there. The most important thing I want you to focus on is just these 4 color blocks in here. So what we're looking at here is typically what Tableau has broken down, how an organization traditionally rolls out Tableau, right? Down at the bottom, they land. So they get a desktop license. And by the way, having a Tableau desktop license is not adoption. Having Tableau server is not adoption. And we'll get to what what makes up adoption, and really the breadth of this entire topic really are the nuts and bolts for adoption, right? So you get a copy of desktop, you create some stuff, you get approval to get a few licenses maybe from your finance department, and so you've landed, right? You're actually putting a toe in the water. The next phase is the expanding, where you might add Tableau server. You might start to add your own data sources, like just an Excel files, multiple data sources, right? And so then you have a couple extra users, a couple different data sources start to get loaded up in there, and you start to encounter your first infrastructure-related issues, really. And this is at the most manageable stage. This is where most of our clients are in kind of this blue area right here. We want to help people get more to the explosion phase, or the enterprise, and certainly the enterprise adoption. But at explosion, the adoption is going to go beyond one department. So it might start with your use of Tableau might start with your development department, kind of the obvious spot. But then finance might be using 1 or 2 of your reports, or might want to use a report, or might want to build something of their own. And another department might want to. I think what you're going to find is once you get a couple of reports in play and they're being used, people start to look over your shoulder when you're looking at them, and departments start to get other people start to get interested, and that's when the kind of the explosion happens, right? Then you start to add the different departments, and then finally, enterprise adoption is where organizations kind of get to, and then what Tableau has found that this is the phase when the center of adoption, the center of enablement is developed in this enterprise adoption phase, which is really far too late. So what we want to do, and what anyone wants to do in thinking about this, is lay the groundwork early as to what needs to be included in that center of enablement, and that will pay off. These next couple slides I'm going to go through rather quickly because I want to spend the most of the time taking a look at what we have put together so far, what we have in development for our Center of Enablement. But I want to just kind of take a couple more moments on making a case for one. So, right, you've built a workbook, right, and that's important. That's good stuff. But it's only the tip of the iceberg. What's below the surface, of course, is all the processes that occur within the organization and your service provider, right? The departments that aren't brought into the discussion, the IT governance, the security, logging in, best practices and standards about how things are done, who's doing them, branding, those types of things as well. It's funny, actually, in the support world, there's so many clients of ours that are hosted with us that don't even know what hosting is, or when they're contacting Concourse for help with their Blackbaud software products, many people just think they're contacting Blackbaud. They don't really even know who they're contacting, right? So you've got these people in different departments, don't quite know how to log in, don't know quite on access, and then when it comes to support, really quite know how it all gets put together, right? And that's just one little example right there, but if you have one place where all these resources are, and you've got multiple departments using Razor's Edge, for instance, or Tableau, for instance, number 2, then you've got one spot where everybody can at least start, put their foot in, and find good footing on what the problem is that they might be solving, or the education piece that they might need, or the best practice guide that might be looking for. So all of this is kind of talking about in the context of Tableau, and it's really more about organizational change. But if you think about a Center of Enablement, right, take a moment while we're going through this to consider this beyond Tableau, and think about it in terms of, you know, other pieces of software or other ways you might create or adopt the idea of Center of Enablement. This is another slide that I borrowed from Michael too, and in the context of what we're doing with the Center of Enablement, we're your IT, right? And you're over there on the right side with business, and the Center of Enablement is the piece that's right in the middle, that's helping us communicate all the things, hopefully, that you need to know about Tableau Server, and get those lined up for you. And the business side says, you know, just set me up with Tableau Desktop so I can build things, and I just want Tableau Server so I can distribute them. And then here's us, or if this is, just pick any generic item within your organization, small or large, and your IT is saying, well, you know, we don't have time to add this Center of Enablement to our plate because we're dealing with your department, 10 other departments, everybody's, you know, desktops, you know, 10 other different pieces of software throughout the organization, and oftentimes the IT is just it's not a priority. But the key thing is to, and what you want to really try to do, is get the two sides sitting down to create this Center of Enablement. Just so happens, here we are on the IT side, and we're the ones initiating this. So I think there's obviously going to be more harmony between this, because, well, one, I'm specifically looking at Tableau and the Center of Enablement in terms of all the IT pieces of it, and how it's gonna, and how the resources that we're putting together for you are going to help you adopt and use the service. And then, you know, I hike a lot. I do a lot of hiking, a lot of climbing, and I kind of, this image here is what I often encounter when I talk to kind of both sides, right? These are the perspectives that each side are looking at. In IT, we're looking at security. We're thinking of you know, the data architecture and the quality and the consistency. We're building the backbone, the infrastructure, and scalability. It's something that I've said here, you know, the roadmap for that. We're dealing with users, logins, governance, etc. And there's you on the other side, on the business side, the organizational side, right? And you just want to get your job done. You want to do the analytic work. You want to get people up to speed on the tools. You want to know that your data sources, where they're coming from, and that you can trust them. And you want to share this throughout your organization. So really getting these two sides to kind of sit down and create a set of resources that enable both sides to manage what they need to manage creates a really wonderful balance. You really want to leverage each other's strengths. So what are the responsibilities of a center of enablement? So this is more of the how-to, right? And what we have. So the first thing you want to start off with, the first thing we start off with is a strategy document. It doesn't have to be very big. Simply, what's the goal? What are we trying to enable people to do, right? What are we trying to get out of this? And are there measurable benefits? So for example, what we want to do is two things. We want to shorten the time where you as users want Tableau to the time you have a usable, shareable workbook or dashboard. We also want to shorten the time to where your users are consuming the shared content. And the cool thing is in Tableau Server, we can measure that. There's lots of great user statistics that we can show you who's clicking on what data sources, who's clicking on what workbooks, who's logging in, how many times, what time of day. So we can kind of measure this and we can get a gauge on this. And you could do the same thing. You can, as a Tableau server user with our service, your site administrator can look at this dashboard of statistics as well and get a sense on, are people using this? And as you move through things like publishing a workbook or two, you can pick up on those usage statistics. So in a moment here, I'm going to move on to kind of showing you where these things are in our Center of Enablement. Training. So, working in desktop, right? Tip of the iceberg. Learning about publishing data sources, publishing workbooks, adding users to Tableau server, creating and managing projects, managing permissions. Just a kind of tip of the iceberg is there. Adoption. I cheated. I skipped ahead there. Adoption's not the easy part with anything. And you could probably think of an example with Razor's Edge, right? Everybody's using, or solicitors. Your development department's using Razor's Edge. Your solicitors might not want to look at the reports that you have. The finance department might not be so keen on logging into Razor's Edge and using or looking at particular reports in there. So same thing with Tableau. Adoption. This is the enablement. The Center of Enablement here is a key piece of moving towards adoption. We want people to use Tableau server, and be effective with it. So obviously adoption requires a champion, and we have several people that are our Tableau server clients now, and there's one or two key people that are like, dang it, we're gonna get this, we're gonna try it out, we're gonna use some stuff, we're gonna create some things, we're gonna see where we go with this. That's the very, very first step. And some small percentage will run with it. I mentioned you can measure adoption with the statistics by looking at how many people are logging in, who's using what, etc. Onboarding, obviously, very, very key. Was one of the things that Holly and I worked on this summer with lots of our clients as well. Getting people oriented and having the resources to learn, what do I do in Tableau server, and how do I do, how do I do things? When I get to the point of where I need to do X, do I have the training on it? Do I have training resources? Do I have some kind of documentation that's guiding me for onboarding? Governance. This is mostly a data discussion, and as we've got a couple of clients that have started adding their own data sources, or we've built specific data sources for them, then that's when we get into the data discussion. How to use it, who's accessing it, how to access it, and how to manage that. So again, you can trust the data, and you know that everybody's using the same source, and who can and who can not access those types of things. An office hour. So one of the things that we've created here, once a week on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to have just I'm going to do an open go-to webinar. And I'll show you in a few minutes here where all this information can be found. And it's just going to, if you have a question, if you want to run something by me, we can take a look at it. Just once a week, 1 hour open office hour where you can kind of come on in and ask your questions. So that's another thing we're adding into the Center of Enablement. Administration. There's going to be some technical articles in there as well in terms of kind of more for the IT people or for your site person who's the one managing permissions. They might have questions about how are you guys backing up? How can you recover things? How about version control? When do you update the Tableau versions of the software? How do the data and the ETL processes work? So we're going to have a little bank of resources for those items as well. Best practices are pretty obvious. That's what a lot of this is about as well. But in terms of best practices, we've had a client or two that's getting into wanting to, say, add their header, colors, templatize things. Maybe so somebody could just say, hey, I want to try building a Tableau sheet, you know, a workbook, a sheet somehow in Tableau Desktop. They could pull up a template, and there's a couple of basic things already started for them, like this, the layout, the colors, the fonts, those types of things. Where does somebody access that on your site? How do you build it? Those types of things. Monitoring. And that's a lot of that, what we're doing, making sure the extract, transform, and load processes are all working, so your data sources are there. How, you know, we're taking a look at peak time and server hitting. We're looking at data sources of, you know, what are being used, most, and how are those being queried, and what's the query time on those. A lot of times that I'm mentioning right here are, of course, for us because we're administering that back end thing. But if you think of a center of enablement throughout your organization for some other piece of software, some other initiative, you can see exactly where your IT would go. Yeah, we're loving that. We would love to have that best practices, and we would love to have our business people and our organization people follow them, right? So you can see how this benefits both sides. And then finally, community. That's really a byproduct of the Center of Enablement. In kind of my view, it's when everybody's bought in what you're trying to do and they're helping each other out. Getting these sides together, the business and IT sides together to discuss issues. And that's really what this presentation and this particular topic is about. So let me pivot for just a moment here, and I'm going to show you this, our Center of Enablement. So I'm going to minimize this and pull up a website. So anybody who is a current Tableau server client of ours can access our support page. It's simply support.concoursehost.com. And if you're not a client of ours, there are some things you will see, some resources on here that you'll see and have access to, and others that you don't. Mostly, you're not going to have access to. If you're not a client of ours, you're not going to have access to the Center of Enablement documents. If you are, you'll simply sign in. I know, another username and another password. I'm going to sign in with my Google account here. And, okay, so this would be you, the user, signed in. This is where our Center of Enablement is going to live. And by the way, you can see Blackbaud hosting support documents live here as well. But let's scroll right down to the Center of Enablement. And you're going to see some of the topics that I just mentioned. So strategy and new client deployment. When you click on any of these here, it's going to take you to a heading and a description of each document. You can view the page. And a lot of these are going to contain PDFs here that you can click on and download as well. So this one contains our strategy with what we were wanting to do with Tableau, and it's an introduction for new clients and our Tableau service. And I'm actually happy to share this with anybody, whether you're a current client of ours or not. Our week 1 through 4 orientation and training guidelines are here. Those are also in PDF form, so these can be revisited. And we'll go ahead and update those, of course, as we update them, and as they become available, I'll put those items up here and date them. Getting beyond getting started, right? That's what everybody wants to do. So we're going to have a best practices for managing permissions, best practices for creating and managing projects, adding users to Tableau Server, publishing workbooks to Tableau Server if you're using Tableau Desktop, publishing data sources to Tableau Server if you're using Tableau Desktop. These are really the 5 nuts and bolts of going beyond just using Tableau Desktop. And at any time, if you have any suggestions at all for any type of document or help topic, please go throw it up here in a question. email me at jason@concoursehost.com or email us at any time at support@concoursehost.com and just say, hey, I'm having a problem with this, and I realized it would be great if I had a help document or video on subject X. So please, please, the community and this Center of Enablement, the community is you and us, and the documents and the resources here are going to start from us, be built by us, but along with your assistance. Here's where I mentioned the weekly online Tableau help, right? So Thursday afternoons, 2 to 3, here's the webinar. This is just going to be a rolling webinar. You just click on this link. You'll download GoToMeeting, dial in, and I'll be on there sitting, and you can just say, hey, Jason, anybody there? And we'll chat, we'll talk, we'll take a look at whatever it is you want to. So that's where that resource is. The technical information that I said are kind of the IT or the site administration side. Those documents are going to be here, and I'll add those once I create those. I'm in the process of that. Many of you have attended a couple of our webinars so far. So let me actually open this one up. And this is right here going to be a link to the Tableau server tips that I started to make. They're also on our YouTube page, but again, we want you to have just one resource, one place to go where you can find everything. So this will take you to each one of the Tableau tips, and as well, all the webinars that were put together. You're going to see each one of these under video tips and instruction. So be able to go back to these, whether so you don't have to dig through emails, you don't have to go to YouTube, you don't have multiple resources to go to. You've got one spot right here, support.concoursehost.com, and you can go to the Tableau Center of Enablement. One thing I want to point out here to you, this is a great resource if you're just starting out with Tableau, is the Tableau Conference Live site. You can click on this right here. Going to take you to this web page. I highly encourage you to do this. I'm already signed in. One, I attended the conference, but two, if you didn't attend the conference, you can sign up for this. Just give them their information so they've got you on their email list. Once you do that, you get to this. This is almost 99% of every single workshop, every single keynote, every single step-by-step, like levels of detail, artful data, writing your first web data connector. This is advanced stuff here. But you can see the point here. There is a ton of stuff, everything from just getting off the ground as a beginner with Tableau and Tableau Server to really, really advanced stuff, as well as taking a look at where's Tableau going with their products in 2017 and beyond. I really encourage you to take a look at this, at least bookmark this. If you don't have time, again, the point is, here's the resource, support.concoursehost.com. It's always there, and you can revisit this stuff. This is really, really good here. And I didn't mean to do that. I meant to support. Control-Shift-T. Go back to here. That's my agent dashboard. We'll go to the Help Center. Almost finished. The very last thing. Oh, no, that is it. So the video tips and instruction right there. So those are the resources that I've begun. Again, our own videos, the short video tips, the webinars that we're doing will all be archived here. The actual Tableau conference stuff, just chock full of great stuff right here. And then the ins and outs of going beyond those first things with Tableau, getting onboarded, technical documents when and if you're curious and you're that that IT person, and introduction and onboarding. So those types of things all there, along with an open format right here, the weekly open office hour, where we can try to open up a little bit more availability for us just for you to ask your questions. And even if they're loosely Tableau related, feel free to use that format. So that's all that I have here. Again, I just wanted to spend about 25 or 30 minutes on that. And I want to stop at just about 40 minutes into the hour. So if there's any questions that you have here, we'll take just a couple of minutes on those. If there are not any questions, then I want to, again, just encourage you to go to support.concoursehost.com. If you haven't signed up for this already and you're a client of ours, go ahead and do that, and then you'll have access to all those Tableau documents and the Center of Enablement. If you're not a client of ours yet and you have other questions, please fire away. Or if you want to take a look at one of these documents, I'm happy to share that with you as well. That's not a problem. So, yes, one of my favorite clients, Roxanne, over there on the East Coast, she says enablement sounds like a bad therapy session. Yeah, it is, but hopefully, hopefully, you've, in this short presentation, you've seen how impactful we hope to have these resources be. We really want to make every effort we can to make it easy for you, and the enablement part of it, you could call it Center of Engagement, Center of Enablement. I like enablement, but that's the word I'm going to use. That's we want to try to do. We want to help you. We want to help you get off the ground with this, and we want to help you, take the steps in scaling it. So. Yes, empowerment. I don't see any questions, and that's fine. A lot of the stuff that we've been presenting, I think, is a lot to absorb. But I think that the bottom line is that you can go back to this stuff. You've now seen where everything's going to be. All these resources are going to be there, so we've pointed that out. And of course, I can follow up with anybody after this. My email is jason@concoursehost.com, so feel free to email me directly. And in general, anytime you need support, the email for that is just support@concoursehost.com, and that we all see those emails. So, if there's no questions, then we'll go ahead and end this. I see one more during the office hours. They'll be able to screen share if we have questions that we'd like to show you. Yes, Jennifer, yeah. I'll have an open GoToMeeting, and then at any point, if I can make you the presenter if you've joined the GoToMeeting, and you can show me whatever you have on your desktop, and vice versa. I can switch the presenting role back around, and I can show you what I have on my desktop. So we can do that collaborative type of work with the screen shares. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with Holly and I this morning, and hope all your Tableau work is going well. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions, any materials you want, and any suggestions as well. I'm really eyes wide and ears wide open for any suggestions that you find that would be helpful for you as we move along this journey together. So thanks a lot for showing up. Holly, do you want to give a plug for next week's?
Yeah, so next week we'll be having a guest speaker, Rebel Saffold. We'll be here to talk about donor-centered fundraising. So very exciting stuff.
Very cool. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend. Go, and I'm going to take a page out of Glenn's book since the Seattle Seahawks have now lost. Go Steelers. Go Steelers. Thanks a lot, everybody.